All right. We are recording, so I'm going to head on into Facebook now. All right. I think we're here.
All right.
We're here. I love it. All right. Let me get all my other little, make sure we are good. Okay. All right. Welcome, everybody. We're good. Pam Inspired here. I want to welcome you and thank you for joining me for another Women in Power Wednesday. Look, if you're just joining us for the first time, you need to know that the women I introduce you to are here to engage, empower, and inspire. Experts in what they do because of either what they love, what they've been through, their desire is to help others. So we're going to have real talk like we do every week. Talk about the highs and the lows, the mental and physical that goes on in their lives, personal life, career, the triumphs, the failures, and the ambition to keep on keeping on. Because of that, I give God all the praise. So the woman I'm about to introduce you to has endured 8 years of physical and emotional abuse. She's a survivor, and she's here to tell us all about it. Once a victim, now an advocate for domestic violence. Lori, you are our Women in Power this Wednesday, and you are beautiful.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so
Look,
excited to be here.
I am so excited to have you here. And I'll tell you, we go way back. We go way back.
hmm
We
We
do.
do.
We go way back. And I love that, that we're back together again. It is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
hmm
And once I kind of did my overview on what I wanted to talk about this month, it's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but domestic violence awareness is just as important to me. And we really do need to keep it on the forefront of everyone's minds. So again, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, before we start though, I need to tell you why I'm inspired by you. I am inspired by you because of your resilience
Oh,
and
thank
your resilience and your strength to overcome adversity. And you
thank
always keep God first.
I do. Thank you
You,
so much. I
you
appreciate
do.
that.
So let's get started. Let's talk a little bit about domestic violence awareness. I want to share with those who are watching with us, I want to give a definition of
hmm
domestic violence because it comes in all forms. And I have learned quite a bit since I, just educated myself more. Obviously, I'm aware of it, but I have something here from the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence. And it reads, domestic violence is the willful intimidation,
hmm
physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior as part of a systematic pattern of power and
hmm
control perpetuated by one intimate partner against another.
hmm
It includes physical violence,
hmm
sexual violence, threats, economic and emotional psychological abuse.
hmm
The frequency and severity of domestic violence varies dramatically.
Yes.
And I know you agree with all of that.
All of it.
Yes.
All of it.
Can you share your story with us?
Sure, I will. Thank you again so much for having me. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you bringing acknowledgement to this month and
Yes.
bringing acknowledgement to domestic violence because it's bigger than just this month.
Yes.
So I appreciate you always willing to support and be a spokesperson for domestic violence just as well. You may not think that you are, but you really have brought a lot of light for domestic violence. So I thank you for that. My story began a couple years ago, and I was in an abusive relationship for 8 years. It started out just like every other relationship, lovely, I thought at the time. So let me say that before I was educated in domestic violence. It was just a normal relationship. He shared a lot of his personal experiences that he had in his past relationship, and I heard him, but I wasn't listening to what he was saying, which is very important. I heard everything that he said, but I wasn't listening to what he was saying.
Interesting.
And we started out, he was a singer, and I was so intrigued by his voice and just just everything that he brought to my table at the time. Again, it's so funny. Let me say this. At first, I remember speaking and saying, I want somebody that's just overpowering, but I didn't actually know what I was saying. I wanted somebody that was overpowering, that somebody just loved me to no end, that just it was all about me. And if I went somewhere, I wanted him. I said these words. I wanted him to be jealous of me. I wanted him to, stop men from looking at me. All of those type of things, which are wrong. Let me say that. Right. That's what I was asking for. So I pretty much got what I asked for. Wow. But one of the incidents that first started out, and it was like actually the first 2 or 3 months, I was around his family. Slowly he was introducing me to him. So one day I just happened to come over to his home, and it was me and his dad there. And I was talking to his dad, real nice people. And before you know it, he comes home, and this is the first time I actually saw a change in him. I saw the anger, I saw the look, but I wasn't aware of what that meant at the time. And he said, I want to see you in my bedroom. So I was like, okay, no problem. Thanks to his dad for speaking with me and everything. And I was at the top of the steps, and before you know it, I felt a nudge in my back, and he pushed me down the steps. When I came to, I was like, whoa, I think you just pushed me down the steps. And he was like, I would never do that. Oh my God, you fell. And I was like, maybe I did fall. Maybe I did just miss the step and fell, right. But I knew that that he had pushed me down the steps. So that's where it technically started, with things like that. And, he would manipulation, he would always, make me believe that what just happened didn't happen, or it happened on my fault,
right.
Right. So, and it went from there.
And that's what I read in your story, that these accidents became more frequent.
Yes.
They became more frequent. And so at what point did you know that there was a problem? Because you love this man, obviously.
Yes,
I did. And he started to show signs of control. He started to show signs of abuse. Did you feel as though you were just, that trapped feeling? Because, how we'd say, girl, get out of that. Girl, go. You better leave him. But you're in it. Right. So what allowed you to not get out? I mean, what happens in those relationships where the violence starts? Yeah.
You just said something important. You feel trapped, and oftentimes women will say, oh my God, why don't you just leave? Well, as you get deeper in it, I'll say, as you get deeper in it, the control is real. And if they're threatening you, if they're beating you, if they're, putting a gun to your head and telling you that I'll
Right.
kill you, I'm going to kill your family. If
Right.
they're telling you that, you are going to believe that. Like, why wouldn't you believe it? If he's
Right.
literally standing in the dark room with a gun to your head telling you, I will shoot you, I will kill you, you're going to believe that. So it's not like you just, I mean, in our mind, we think that something's not right.
Right.
That's what we think, something's
Right.
not right. We know it's not, we know it's wrong, because
Right.
I know in my upbringing, I didn't experience that at all. I
Right.
didn't see it at all. And so, we start believing everything
Right.
they tell us,
Right.
so I know for me, I stayed out of fear. It wasn't love, because I knew it wasn't right. I knew it
Mhm.
wasn't right for him to put his hands on me. I knew it wasn't right for him to be pointing guns at me. I knew that, but I knew that if he could do all of that, he would kill me.
Right.
You
Right.
know.
And this is where I think the part of the psychological,
Mm-hmm.
like one plays into the next,
Mm-hmm.
because psychologically you start to kind of conform to this person that he wants you to be, with the controlling natures. And subconsciously I can see people, that women, men, that would start to think they deserve this.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly enough, depending,
We,
because of self-esteem,
right.
other issues that start to play a part into it. And it's this mental play that can go along with the physical or the emotional combination of both. Do you mind sharing? It was physical for you?
Mm-hmm.
It was physical for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
Physical, not so much verbal. He never called me out of my name.
wow.
It was more physical. It wasn't financial, because financial abuse is a part of it too. It wasn't financial because we covered all our bills. He made sure everything was straight. More mental, more physical, emotional. He made me feel that I couldn't be anything with him. Without him, let me say, without him, he made me feel that there was no life outside of him.
Wow.
And they mentally have control of your mind.
Right.
We couldn't, I couldn't. There would be times we'd be walking down the street, and I always looked down. If I saw a friend, especially a male friend, I'd be like, oh my God, please, I hope he doesn't see me. I'd try to hide if I could, or try to look away so the person wouldn't see me,
Right.
because we made eye contact, then that was, hell broke
Right.
loose at that point,
Yeah.
and let him tell it, I was sleeping with that person, or
Oh, right.
things
Right.
like that. So,
Right.
and it was crazy because you mentioned this, like it made me start thinking, oh my God, did I sleep? Do I sleep with him? Or
Did I sleep with him? Right. Yeah.
It
Right.
really did. It really made me start
Psychological. Right.
questioning myself. Did I really do these things? Knowing that I didn't do it, but that's the way that's how much control they have over
Right.
you.
Right. It's interesting too, because I read somewhere, you're saying that now you have a mask, like you're wearing a mask to your friends and family.
Mhm.
So what happened between the two of you was very private. Obviously, this is not something you're sharing.
Right.
Obviously you can share with your mom and people closest to you, John pushed me down the steps, or John, so you would smile through all of this.
Always.
Your friends and family. That had to be very difficult.
Always. My family never had a clue until I came out, basically on social media with my movement. They had no clue. They just knew that we had broke up, and they knew that, actually they were like, why would you leave such a good man? Because he provided. He made sure that I was well. The family loved him.
Right.
So they never ever saw that side of him. They never saw that side. And I would make sure that they wouldn't see that side of him, because if they had I know it would have been a different outcome. It would have been a different outcome for them. They definitely wouldn't have tolerated that.
Right.
And, I have to share this one story. It was funny because after we had separated, one of my family members had ran into him, and, he was trying to get to him, to have a conversation with him. And he said that he kept going in the opposite direction. He was like, well, man, when he finally caught up to me, he was like, man, look, I just wanted to say hi. I don't care that you all are not together anymore. People break up,
Right.
but we still love you. And he was like, oh, okay. And he said he kind of gave him a look like, are you really, are you still, want to speak to me? But at the time, none of my family knew. So when I told him, I was like, you know what? Let me explain to you why he reacted that way. And at that point, they were like, oh my God, like, this is crazy. Like, we had no clue. Why didn't you share that with us?
Right.
But I didn't feel, I don't know what I felt. Let me say that. I don't know what I felt. I knew that it would be problems if I did share that with him, but I didn't want him hurt either, because he was a hurt person just as well. He was
Right. Right.
as
And that's something we talked about the other day, is I think as you move through your healing process, as you start to, just like, heal, your I'm Beautiful movement. We'll talk about that in a little bit. You did start to see things through his eyes, not justifying, obviously, what none of this is right. None of this, but knowing that he has a problem.
Right.
Like, he has a problem, and turning it off of me. Because I would think going through that for 8 years, again, the psychological, you might start thinking, what's wrong with me?
Most definitely. Most definitely.
Right? I mean, I would think, I've had some situations where I'm just like, okay, is it me? Is it me?
Right.
So again, just the power of how that abuse can really conform you to somebody. You look in the mirror and you don't know.
Well, one thing I didn't do, I never looked in the mirror, because I never saw me. I never looked in the mirror. And that until years later, if I walked past the mirror, I would like run past the mirror. I never looked in the mirror because I never saw me.
Right.
I never saw me when I looked in the mirror. So, and a lot of ladies don't. A lot of ladies that I speak with, they don't. I mean, some ladies have their mirror covered up. I had my mirror covered up for a long time. I would just never look at it because I just never saw me. And when I did, when I started the healing process, when I did look at myself, I saw the hurt and pain that you all couldn't see.
Right.
That you all couldn't see. I saw the fake smile. I saw the makeup and the hair, and I'm going to be happy today. But I just, honestly, I wanted somebody at some point to look me in my eyes and see the hurt.
Wow.
That's what I wanted. I wanted somebody to see my hurt. But nobody saw it.
Nobody saw that. No, and forgive me, I'm looking on Facebook. I also want to make sure that if there are anything, that if we have any questions, we might have had a Facebook issue. I'm not sure, but I'll worry about that later, because we're still recording, so it's all good. This is going to go up.
Okay.
Something else. There's this book out there that's called Smiling on the Outside, like Dying on the Inside. Just so to your point, lashes, hair, makeup, and you're like, I'm dying. Does anybody see I'm dying? Just that whole. So, to your point, that had to be tough, but 8 long years.
Yes.
8 long years.
And it seemed like, it literally seemed like a true lifetime. Like when I look back sometimes and I think, like, I literally think that 8 years, like 8 years of my life, like I would never wish that on anybody. I mean, I'm literally just thinking about it just now. It just hit me again like a ton of bricks. Like 8 years is a long time. I even had it down to the science one time, to the minutes, to the seconds. I mean, that was my life. That was 8 years of my life that weren't mine. That weren't mine. And that were somebody else's. And let me say this, even after the 8 years, it was years after that. I'm going to say another whole 8 years. So I'm going to say 16 years of my life weren't mine, because even after I got out of the situation, it still mentally had a hold on me. I was terrified everywhere I went, everywhere I walked. I was looking to see this man, if somebody touched me on my shoulder, I would literally jump out of my skin. I still to this day have a issue with just being comfortable.
Wow.
just being comfortable,
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's going to hurt me, but I'm still like a little jumpy. Sometimes
Right.
if something side comes out of the side of me, I'm a little jumpy from that, because like I said, not thinking that anybody's going to be there to hurt me, but just, it's just it's a trigger. It's a
Right.
trigger.
I'm
You know,
sure.
we have triggers. I still have triggers to this day. That's why, I might like to share everything about domestic violence
Right.
and the
Right.
experience of it.
I'm sure. I mean, day in and day out. I mean, it makes sense. Day in and day out for 8 years. It makes sense that just because he's removed out of your life does not take away from the fact that you've been traumatized by it.
Exactly.
And I could see triggers, voices, and that's why what you're doing now to let other women know that they're not alone and that they do have a voice. Which is key. I'm going to give a few statistics here because this absolutely floors me when I read this. I could not believe it. This all came off your website. You've got, and it's thebeautifulmovement.com.
Yes.
Thebeautifulmovement.com. So we're going to share more information a little later, but just these statistics. On an average, nearly 20 people per minute. Now, we've already talked.
I know.
Okay. So on average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. During 1 year, this equates to more than 10 million women and men. 1 out of 3 women and 1 out of 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner. This includes a range of behaviors. That's what we're talking about: slapping, shoving, pushing, and in some cases might not be considered domestic violence. And I think this is where we get kind of caught up, because I read somewhere that it's believed that domestic violence is the most common but least reported crime in the United States. And I believe that may have something to do with it, because it's like, that's not, I made him mad. I made him mad. I deserved it. You start to justify why it was okay for him to throw you down a flight of steps.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's exactly what he did, because I actually thought when he did that, like, maybe I overstepped my boundaries. That's why I thought to myself, I overstepped my boundaries. I shouldn't have been talking to his dad. And that's crazy, because I talk to everybody. Right. I talk to everybody, even family members. If I talked to a male family member, I knew I was going to get it when I got home. Wouldn't happen there, but it would happen on the way home. Right. Or as soon as we got out of sight, it would happen. So, the numbers are alarming of how many people deal with this. I mean, like literally right now, like you said, as we're talking, getting abused or being verbally disrespected, right? Or murdered, right?
And to that point, you have a statistic that the presence of a gun, because it's not always using your hands, right? The presence of a gun in a domestic violence situation increases the risk of homicide by 500%.
Exactly.
I didn't even know there was a 500%. Really, when I saw the number, I was like, that is just ridiculously sick. I mean, that's just crazy.
And those numbers, mind you, are totally different since the coronavirus.
We talked about that. We talked about that. We
totally
talked about that. I have read somewhere, in all these articles, right? Domestic abuse. What else? Just drinking, drugs. I mean, any abuse, any kind of abuse.
It is. And like I for a moment because I internalize my conversations and And when I have meetings with ladies, because I honestly feel what they feel, because I've gone through it. You know, it's not like, you know, sometimes if you're not in the situation, I mean, you understand, you feel for it, but when you really have come from it, you like your heart really bleeds for these people, because I know exactly what they're talking about. And, you know, I was watching a news special not too long ago, and they were just talking about, you know, domestic violence and how people, you know, like they're shut in now, so they can't go to work, they can't leave their houses, you know, and that is a huge problem, because I know when I was going through my situation, I could not wait to go to work. I didn't care if the snow was over top of the roof. I was getting out of there and I was going to work. You know, I had to be away. And even still to this day, I've gotten better. But I think I posted about this on Facebook one day where I wanted to take off, just wanted to take off from work. You know, I've been on my job for 32 years. And so I wanted to take off one day because I was just tired. You know, I've had perfect attendance on my job for 32 years, literally. 32 years. I take vacation, but I never took a day off. And this one particular morning, I woke up like 3 o'clock in the morning. I was like, you know what? I just want to take a day off and I want to go shopping. And I sat on the side of the bed, and it was 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, okay, if I got to call in, I got to call in before 7. And literally from 3 to about 6 o'clock, I sat on the side of the bed and I just cried, and I fought myself. Like, Lori, it's okay. You can take off, because he's not here anymore. And when I talk to my therapist, because I still have a therapist, because, you know, because let me say this, healing is lifelong. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care if they tell you, oh, 6 weeks, you're healed. That is a lie. We were talking about myths earlier. That is a myth. Healing is lifelong.
I agree.
And that is on anything. I don't care if it's drugs. I don't care if it's alcohol. I don't care if it's money management. I don't care what it is. It's lifelong.
I agree.
It's lifelong. So we were having a conversation, and I told her that I had experienced this. And finally, I had, like, around 6 o'clock, I called into my job, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a day off. And my boss even called back, and she's like, is everything all right? Because you never do this. And I was so excited about that moment that I actually made a decision to take off and to just do nothing. And I didn't have to have a fear of somebody being at home with me that was going to hurt me.
Wow.
And I spoke to my therapist, and I think I was speaking to you about this one day when we were having a conversation. That he had told me that, isn't it amazing how all those years later, I technically still was in a relationship with him. If that makes sense. Years later, he had that control on me. And that was so powerful, because I never looked at it like that. You literally are still in a relationship with him, because he literally has that control over you. And I think that's when I really, you know, started really getting into therapy, like, because like I didn't realize, like, that he had that control over me still. After the relationships later, you know, he had control over me.
Yeah, that power. I mean, and this is why it's so amazing why you have taken your pain and turned it into this purpose. Because if you're not careful and you don't get the help that you got through therapy, through you know, networks of women that have been domestically abused, know you're not alone, so you can really purge all this out, it could ultimately control you into your next relationship.
Most definitely.
Right? Into your next relationship. And I think, it's just would be just so sad and unfair if it stripped you for that, you know, years and years, like you said, another 8 years after the 8 years, or another 16 years, you know?
Most definitely. And we do that, because a lot of times, you know, sometimes we even become abusers ourselves. you know, because we're so fearful of somebody hurting us that we, you know, like I've had a wall up for a long time that if somebody came to me that I thought was harmful to me, like I would go straight for them. Like, you know, you weren't going to get me, you know, and do I as strong as it used to be, but you know, I'm definitely very cautious and I'm very aware and I'm very alert of what I hear now. You know, when people speak, I listen to them because, you know, I share with a lot of women all the time that, you know, had he shared that information with me back then, I don't think we would have been a couple because that's an issue. If he had told me that he was abused and this is what happened in my life, I would have, you know, said, listen, have you had therapy? You know, do you speak to anybody about that? You know, and I do. It's funny because I speak to a lot of people now and I'll meet a guy and he'll somehow, I'm just a magnet for it. He'll start sharing his past and we become really, really good friends. And it's like, they're like, oh my God, I can't believe that I share that with you. Because it's like, you know, I'll meet somebody and they'll just start talking. And it just goes deeper and deeper. And then, you know, before we know it, we're in their past and and I'm like, okay, that's why there's a problem. You know, that's the problem because people just don't wake up with issues. People just don't wake up and abuse people. They just don't.
It does come from somewhere. You're right. It does come from somewhere. And I think also too, as women, we're nurturers. And we tend to, I mean, I'll say, you know, before I got married, there were some men that I dated that had some issues, and we tend to want to be that one to help. We want to be the one that can, you know, just get them through the problems. And that's really not what we're here for. And, you know, although it may be all out of love, if they're not completely healed and whole in the areas that they're suffering in or had suffered through, then we could ultimately be the brunt of, you know, the areas that they're not healed and whole in. So, and yeah.
And that's what I thought I could do for him. I thought I could fix him. I thought I could fix him. And we, you know, we just can't fix people sometimes. They have to want to fix themselves. And but like I said, as I'm growing now, you know, my heart ached for him because he was no different than me. You know, he was a guy, but you know, he had went through the same thing. He had went through abuse just as well as me, you know. So, and that happens a lot. It happens a lot in families, and we don't have conversations anymore. My therapist, she always talks about having dinner table conversations. We don't sit at the table and we don't talk anymore. You know, I'm still to this day, my son is grown, but like we have conversations. We sit at the dinner table. You can't sit on the couch or you can't be upstairs. You have to come to the table and we conversate. We need to find out what's your day like. You know, have you dealt with anything? And we need to continue having dinner table conversations and not pushing everything underneath the rug. There's a lot of things that have been pushed underneath the rug. So I'm trying to raise the rug. And I'm trying to let it loose. You know, because it's not fair that, you know, our kids grow up and they tend to be just like us. And then we're like, you need to fix that. And it's like, well, how can they fix that? Because they got it from us. You know, they got it from us. And when I talk to people all the time, they're like, oh my God, I never experienced this. I never had this. And as I get deeper and I question them, you know, they'll bring up, well, you know, Uncle Bob, he sexually assaulted me, or my mom and dad, they were, you know, they screamed and hollered a lot. And I'm like, do you realize the hurt and pain that you experienced and the makeup and the hair and the Louis Vuitton and the Gucci purse is just a cover up.
It is.
You know, and then they're like, what, they get a wow moment because it's like they never knew because they thought everything was great.
A lot of it is influence. It's really not rocket science. I've said it, if kids, young kids are watching their parents, unfortunately do drugs or alcohol or abuse one another or yell but that's what's being poured into them. So your kids are a product of what they see.
Most definitely.
And what you do, so the influence of that can go a very long way, resulting in that's all they know. That's all they know. That's all they know.
That is right to them. That is
exactly
right to them. So you can't.
It's all they know.
You can't fault somebody for what they know.
Exactly right.
Exactly. And that's the thing that I'm not saying. Like you said, we never want you to forget what a person has done, because I'm not bypassing that by no means.
Right.
But like when we had a conversation not too long ago, and I was telling you, when I hear something of somebody that has done something, or they've gone to a school and blown up a school or something, or did something, I always want to know what happened in that person's background, because people just don't do that. People just don't do that. And then we miss the help sign. We miss that this person needed help, because most of the time we don't want to get involved. We want to be in people's business.
Right.
But we miss a lot of signs. We don't conversate. We don't look at each other anymore. We don't, we're always down on the phone. We don't look at people's eyes, because if you look in people's eyes, you can see their soul.
Right.
Honestly,
True.
you can see a person's soul.
I believe it.
Their eyes.
Yes, and that the pain in someone's soul, it seems to be a little bit more pronounced, when it's you can see joy, joy, the soul, but that pain, it's you can really see it. Well, let me ask you a few more questions. Oh, this is something, hold on, let me go back to one more statistic. I just want to hit on this. This is interesting. 50% of all homeless women and children in the United States are fleeing from domestic violence. Fleeing from, they're getting away from it. That's incredible, 50%. That's a large number.
That's a large number.
It really brings perspective into how large this really is, and how this is just really and I hate to think of it this way, but I think about the number of townhomes that are on my street and how many of the homes are suffering from this potentially. Like, really, when you bring it home like that, like I look at the Strip and I'm like, is it one out of every? It's crazy.
And then you see them outside and it's like, hey.
Exactly. All right, just a couple things I'm gonna throw out here, because I do want to talk a little bit about your beautiful campaign. I want to talk about, this pain has blossomed into your passion and purpose and drive. But just a couple things here. And these are myths that I ran across that I found to be interesting. Domestic violence only happens in poor families.
Myth.
Wrong.
Myth.
Right. We know that it happens on all levels
myth.
of society, ethnic backgrounds, and religious groups. So that is definitely a myth. This is a good one. If the abuser is truly sorry, and I know if anybody's watching this and has been through this, they know they're truly sorry and promises to never do it again, the abuse will stop.
Myth.
Well, we obviously know that.
Myth.
We wouldn't be here talking.
Right.
We wouldn't be here talking.
Now, let me say this. Let me stop you though.
Okay.
Intense therapy.
Right.
Intense therapy, and I mean intense therapy to go back in their history.
Right.
Maybe there might be a change. And one of the advocates that I do work with, he was an abuser. Mm-hmm. And he's had the intense therapy, mm-hmm. And so can a person change? Most definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that too. All right, let's pick another one here. Well, we've already answered this, but domestic violence is just an occasional slap or punch. That's not that serious though.
It starts now.
Right.
That is an exit to the door.
Right.
Sorry.
Right.
That's an exit to the door.
Right. Drinking or drug abuse causes domestic violence.
No,
you're absolutely right. Some abusers, it says here, use it as an excuse for their violent behavior.
Mm-hmm. Almost definitely.
So it's like, I'm sorry, I was drinking because I was drinking too. So it's an excuse, and obviously,
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it definitely adds to the problem. Right. It definitely adds to the situation. But mm-hmm.
Yes. And the final one is victims have the types of personalities that seek out and encourage abuse.
That's my myth. That made me mad.
Isn't that mad? Isn't that maddening?
That's crazy. That's so ugly.
Isn't it ugly? I know. It's a myth. It's a myth. And they say there is no determined personality traits.
Right.
Not at all. Describe a victim.
Exactly.
It is the abuser that is responsible for the abuse. And this is where, again, the psychological part can happen, because they'll make you think you just keep making me so mad and you won't let me eat my dinner without, and so I had to,
Most definitely. That's how it is. That's how it is.
So it's a myth. It's interesting. I saw those. I was like, this is interesting. And all myths, absolutely all myths. So let's talk a little bit more about, your life after the storm.
My life after the storm. It has been a journey, and it is a journey, and still is a journey. And one thing I'll say this as far as healing, and I'm really big on this, speaking about the healing process and being an open book for everybody as far as domestic violence, because again, it just doesn't go away overnight. For the longest time, once I did start coming out and talking about my journey, I was more comfortable with people just like me, because you wouldn't understand and you wouldn't want to hear me talk about this 365 days a year, because that's how our conversations are sometimes. Like when we're together, it's like we can really relate to each other and we can really understand each other. Everybody doesn't understand why we have to keep going over it over and over and over again. Why do we have to keep having these conversations? Or why don't you just let it go? Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. Well, 8 years and then 8 more years and then lifelong is something that you just can't let go. Right. So has my life been totally different? Of course it has. Has it been challenging? Of course it has. And I'll go back to saying whether it be an alcoholic or a drug addict or or somebody of the sort, every day is a healing process for us. Every day, if an alcoholic walks past a store and there's a bottle of liquor, that could be such a trigger for anybody. It could just take that one little, let me just walk into the store and just pick this up. And that could blow 20 years of what he's gone through. Yes. Yes. It's no different than what we as victims go through, So when we're a victim, I like to call myself I forgot what the word I like to say. Not a recovering, good gosh, I forgot. It'll come to you. Yeah, it'll definitely come to me, but I don't like to call myself like that I'm completely healed, because every day is something new. I can go a whole year and everything be perfectly fine. Right. But last year, I'll say this real quick. In my relationship, I had we were outside and we were arguing about something one day, and he spit on me and told me, if you cry, I'm gonna, abuse you, beat you. He made me stand there, and I had this spit running down my face, and I couldn't move, I couldn't cry, I just couldn't do anything. So I had mentally numbed myself out, where I was just, not there. So long story short, one day, like a couple years ago, 2 years ago, I was walking into my job and it started raining, and it hit my face a certain way. And I just started breaking down crying. I was crying on the way into work, like out of control. And I didn't know what happened. So I called my therapist and I said, oh my God, this moment just happened. She was like, well, talk me through what happened. And I said, I don't know. I was just walking into work and all of a sudden this rain hit me and I just started crying. And she said, I want you to say that again. And so she made me say it again, go through our process. And she said, let me tell you what you experienced. She said, remember years ago when that situation happened, that's what you just experienced. You finally got the breakthrough. And that, again, that's
right
years ago.
Right.
That breakthrough to actually cry for that
Right.
moment.
Wow.
So, you know, that 2 years ago, I was able to cry for something that happened 20 years ago. You know, so that's how deep this really is.
Right.
You know,
Right.
it really is, you know, like something that small, you know, and now when the rain hits me, I can embrace it because
right.
you know, what that was. And I was able to cry that cry from 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, so that's what healing is. And that's what I like to do. That's why I like to be an open book to people, because that's what I want you to know.
Right.
Something that intense.
Right.
And something that long ago it could happen. Something can happen right now. You could say something to me right now that could take me back there.
The trigger.
That could be a trigger, you know, and people they really don't understand us sometimes. So that's why I allowed myself with the Beautiful Movement to share what this is, who I am, and the people that are in my inbox that are not willing to share their story yet.
Right.
Oh my God, like you just brought up something in me that I never knew.
Right.
You know, and that's my goal to do this movement. It's about me, and that's why I first started it, because I didn't want to be alone anymore.
Right.
I didn't want to be alone anymore. My family didn't understand, but before I had went out and opened up about this, you know, I shared it with my family. They were hearing it for the first time. They were hearing about the abuse for the first time. And I made sure I spoke with my son, you know, about it, because, you know, I wanted him to know that, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to share everything.
Right.
I'm going to share everything about me. So, you know, if you hear something, you know, just know that, you know, I am putting it out there.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So, yeah.
You know what I think about, you know, when someone goes, I was speaking to this woman the other day, and she said that she has been going to Alcoholics Anonymous for 35 years. I was like, 35 years? What? You know, and for a second, I was like, wow, why are you good now? You know, and she hasn't had a drink in 35 years. But to your point, it's still the support. It's still, you know, it's still it's a struggle, and you need to be with others in support groups to know that you're not alone, and help those who might be new to the program, to give them hope. But it is for a lifetime then, in a sense. But obviously, as you, like you said, the rain is now hitting your face a little differently.
Right.
It's hitting you a little differently. It's not taking you to the place. It's actually allowing you to kind of purifying you into a, you know, like, because you're not the same person you were.
Right.
Still healing, but not the same person you were. So you can receive it differently.
Most definitely.
Which is a beautiful thing. And I love your movement, hence my shirt.
Thank you.
Girl, I've had this shirt for years too. When you first came out. So let me just tell you about Beautiful though. You really just shot off, like the whole Beautiful movement. Everyone started calling. I have not heard as many women call each other beautiful now until your movement. I'm giving you all the credit. I'm giving you, because I call it, hey, beautiful, hi, beautiful, hey, beautiful. And I never, and other women, I think, you know, whether I say it or someone else says it, you say it, you pick it up and then you give it to the next woman, hey, beautiful. And so it's just, as women, it's so beautiful to know that we can compliment you, hey, beautiful, because that's exactly what we are. We are beautiful women in our own ways, and you know, and who God created us to be. But really, I'm serious. I hadn't heard it until your movement. Not like you talking about. Not like so you get all the kudos on that one.
I never used to hear it either. And it was so crazy because even after I started that, people would say, "Hey, beautiful." And I'm like, why are they saying that? You know, and I'm like, wait a minute, that's when I started.
Yeah. I'm telling you.
Oh my gosh, like nobody called, none of my friends, like we don't even say each other's names anymore. It's like, hey, beautiful, or hey, queen.
Queen,
You know,
yep.
Queen, or
I
even
love
with the men, I love to call them kings because my goal is to uplift. Because if
That's
we're
it.
uplifted and if we
Yes.
feel beautiful, then these things, you know, we will feel more special about ourselves. You know,
Absolutely.
my father wasn't in my life, so you know I wanted somebody to love me and give me that love that he didn't give me. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So that's something. Again, you know, my grandparents, they love me dearly. My mom loved me dearly, but that dad, I don't care if you're missing something. You're missing something.
Right.
Nobody else can tell me anything different. If I'm missing, a stepfather can't do it. If that's what I'm missing, my dad, then that's who I needed to love me. So I was searching for him.
Right.
But the funny thing about it is, a lot of times we do date what we're missing.
Yes, and I think that is definitely. You're definitely correct. There's the void. You're filling the void.
Yes.
You're filling that void. You're filling that void. But you're right. That beautiful, that king, that queen, that's just mad respect. We're right here.
Right.
You know, we're right here. What's up, beautiful? What's up? Like, you know, it just starts off, you know, I absolutely love it. All right. We're wrapping up just a little bit. I want to talk about one more thing, because we're going almost on an hour.
No way. I told you, shut me down when you need to, because girl, I could talk all day long.
Because this is a subject we got to, and we could probably talk more about it, but I do, you know, as we share this video, as we, you know, because my goal is to, like I said, you know, Pam Inspired, I love talking to women specifically. I'm sure some men will be on the show down the road, but that are really just doing their thing and trying to make a difference in the communities and that they love. And so for anyone who's watching, if someone is going through a domestic violent situation, or knows somebody, what piece of advice can you give them to get out? What's like one thing you can tell them, kind of, you know, because their head is swollen, right? You know, not literally, you know what I mean? But they're going through a lot. What's the one thing you can tell them? What's the first thing, like pick up the phone? What did you do? I mean, when you made when you said enough's enough.
I wouldn't recommend anybody to do what I did.
Okay.
Because mine was a little different, but two things real quick. I prayed really, really hard for my relationship to be over. I was like, I don't care how you do this, but I want you to end it because I don't need to be here. And I said, Lord, if you get me out of this relationship, I promise you, I will never go back. So another statistic is women go back 7 to 10 times in their abusive relationship.
Wow.
I made a promise to myself and to God, if you let me out of this relationship, I'll never go back. So when my ex had came to me one day and he was just like, you know what, I want this relationship. We had a big argument, a big fight. And he was like, I want this relationship to be over. And even though he said that, I remember crying like a baby, like, oh my God, like, you know, he's going to leave me. What am I going to do? And literally, I heard God in my ears tell me, this is what you asked for.
Wow.
So you asked for it.
Right.
Giving it to you. So I remember telling him that day, when I walk out this door, I'm not coming back.
Right.
Because there is no turning around. I cannot do this because I knew I had asked a higher power.
Right. I'm not going to be a part of this statistic.
To help me with that. So I left everything. I took my child, I took his diaper bag, and we left. and that was it. It didn't end there, and we'll definitely have another conversation.
Yeah.
Another time, because it didn't end there. We would meet real quick. We would meet again. He still had so much control. He would call me and say, you know what, I want you to meet me here and we're going to have sex. And I would meet him there and have sex because I was so traumatized that he was going to hurt me. And one day I'll share with you how it ended, but I would never advise that to anybody because I put myself in a dangerous situation. But
well, I would actually love that because this is an important enough subject that there can be a second show.
Most definitely.
It really can be a second show. And we can talk about that, what we want to offerings of counseling, offerings of that next stage of, getting out, counseling, support. I think that would be awesome.
And just real quick, if somebody is listening and they are in that situation, I would never tell a victim to just leave. I would never do that because I would never want anybody to get in a situation where they could possibly get murdered or get their families murdered. Right. I would tell them to get a plan, have a safety plan. And again, like this, we could have meetings like this every other week because you have to get a safety plan, and that's getting your insurance cards, your medical cards, storing money aside and things like that.
This is good. Yep. This is good. Now that really, it is that safety plan. First, and pray, like you said. That's the first thing you said was pray. But it is not like just up and leaving because if
you have to have a plan because
you're probably going to come back. You don't have anywhere to go. You don't, so you're going to need that shelter. You're going to need something that he's providing, which is going to have to allow you to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Lori, where can people find out more about you, please? I'm going to have you back, promise, so we can.
Most definitely. I'm here.
Because Kamala and Biden are on their way.
I know. We got to go. We got to get out of here before they get out.
My popcorn. I got to get my.
Hey, I had ice cream last time. But they can reach me on thebeautifulmovement.com.
Perfect.
I'm on Instagram. That I have to look at it. The Instagram is _movement.
That's it.
I have Facebook, and I also have a private group on Facebook. I have the Beautiful Movement on Facebook. I have Yes, I'm Beautiful. But my private group, I also have Lori Carter, but I also have the Beautiful Movement Safety Net. That if you want to come in there, and that's just women that are kind of in hiding, and they just want a safe place.
I love
that's called the Beautiful Movement Safety Net.
I love that.
Come join that on Facebook. They can reach me anytime on social media. I have a couple private numbers that I won't share.
Of course. No, it's good.
If they want to reach me, they can reach me through the Beautiful Movement or inbox me, and I'll share that information with you.
I love it. I love it because we've got to put an end to it. We've got to put an end to domestic violence, and it's people like you who have shared their story, shared their pain, put some purpose into it and some passion that we all come together. We will. I'm trusting and praying that we will see the light at the end of the tunnel with this. Well, I love you to pieces. Thank you so much for joining me.
And real quick, I have a hat. I don't know if you can see it. This is one of my hats. I have a shirt. Let me see if I can open it up. I have just like one of the shirts Pam has. I have several different shirts.
That got bling. Mine don't have no bling. Oh, that's bling.
I'll make sure you get one. I'll make sure you get one. It's purple. I have all different colors. I have all different shirts. Yes, I will make sure you get a hat, but I would also make sure if you would love to give one out to anybody. I have shirts, hats.
We're going to contest that right on off. Oh, yeah. We're going to do a hashtag beautiful, a hashtag I am beautiful.
Right.
Hashtag I am beautiful. We're going to make that happen. And then we have a couple raffles that we still have to do. But this, most importantly, for the month of October.
Yes, whatever you need, I got you for your raffles.
I love it. I love it. I love your support. You're so wonderful. Thank you so much, Lori, for joining me this this Wednesday evening on Women in Power Wednesday. And this is Pam Inspired. Guys, thank you so much. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Love you so much.
Love you too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.